Hi, my name is Dr. Leanne Wood, and I'll be talking today about how to create source lists for your projects in college. So source lists have a few different purposes. Essentially, they're a list of all the things that you consulted in writing an essay or preparing a presentation. We write them for ethical reasons. We want to acknowledge that we've drawn upon other people's ideas and we want to give credit to those other people. It also helps give you, the writer or the presenter, greater credibility with your audience, whether it's readers or people sitting out in a live audience, because hopefully you've cited some really good sources. If you've cited things like Wikipedia or sort of random web pages or anonymous articles, that won't give you a whole lot of credibility with your readers. But if you've cited some really solid sources and really well-respected experts, it's going to lend you more credibility. And finally, we create source lists to help our readers or our audiences find sources on their own. The source list is the place that they can go and find enough information to go locate that source on their own. You may also be asked sometimes to create a source list early in a research process. Not all of those sources may wind up in your finished product, but it's sort of a check-in to demonstrate that you are starting to find some good sources. There's going to be some basic information that goes into each entry. So you want to have your author's name, or sometimes there are multiple authors and you want to name all of those authors. You'll always want to give a title for the work and a date of publication. Now, depending on the type of source you're citing, there will be some other bits of information that need to get listed as well. So here's two common types of sources you might be citing in a paper: a book versus a journal article. As we see here, you're going to still give your author's names, last name, comma, first name, and both types. Your book is going to have a single title. It's going to have a publisher and probably a location, and then a year of publication for that book. For an article, it's a little more complicated because you have both the article title and then the journal in which that article appears. So we can think about scholarly journals as being kind of fancy types of magazines. So we want to give both the individual title of the article and then the larger journal that it appears in. Those journals typically appear maybe quarterly or 4 times a year. So each of those issues has its own number, and typically you might have like 4 issues included in a single volume. There's more information to include here, so you'll have a year followed by a volume and an issue number. And then finally, because the article is only a small part of the journal, you want to give a page range that article appears in the larger journal. So there's different kinds of source lists you might be asked to write depending on the field or the type of class that you're in. So for instance, English majors typically use what's called the MLA style, or the Modern Language Association's style guide, and they call their source lists works cited lists. They don't call them bibliographies. A psychology or a sociology major was probably going to be asked to use the American Psychological Association's style guide, or the APA guide, and their source lists are called references pages. And then in a history class, you might be asked to use the Chicago style guide, and that is called the bibliography. So different types of lists have different style guides. The rules are kind of different for each style guide, so ask your professor what they prefer. Another type of source list we might be asked to write is an annotated bibliography, and I'll explain that in just a second. So as you can see from this list, there's a lot of different types of sources you might find yourself needing to cite. You should always consult the appropriate style guide for help. You can ask instructors, you can ask a librarian. The easiest way is probably just to Google, how do I cite a film in MLA style, or something like that. Here are a few quick notes about how to format a source list. I'll let you pause and read through this page on your own. An annotated bibliography is essentially everything we've been talking about so far, that is a bunch of full references for sources followed by commentary from you. Those are the annotations. Check with your instructor about what exactly they want to see in those annotations. Sometimes it's just a summary or description of a source. Often professors also want to know how you're going to use each source in your project. A couple of final thoughts. Source lists, that is the page of sources at the end of your document, never replaces your in-text citations. If you've got an in-text citation that mentions something, make sure that source is showing up on your source list. All right, that's it for now. Thank you for paying attention. I hope this was helpful.